Where are we headed next? Mark Burstein in the control room? You want to talk us through? So give us the pathways here, Rick, of the.
You bet. Yeah. So look, we're sitting here at 266 electoral votes. 270 is the magic number. The most straightforward way to do it would be to win one of the battleground states, Michigan and Wisconsin. We know Trump is leading in both of them, 230,000 vote margin and 100,000 vote margin. We still, though, at this stubborn late hour, have a significant amount of vote that is out in the Detroit area. We're still only up to about half, and that's 400,000 votes that are still there to be counted. And in Wisconsin, we're waiting on some extra parts of Milwaukee. We're up to 3/4 of the total vote, but that's still 100,000 plus votes in a race that right now only has them. Look at that. This is kind of wild. It's almost the exact same number. She's up by 108,000 in Milwaukee, down by 108,000 statewide. So double that up. It's hard. It's very hard to catch up, but that's the reality. And then we have a couple of other things. New Hampshire has not been allocated yet. That is a Democratic-leaning state.
Show us in New Hampshire the sort of with the circles that shows us where the outstanding vote is and why we wouldn't be able to call that race.
Yeah, I mean, what we have here is some Republican leading parts of the state that have no vote whatsoever yet. And for whatever the reason that is, sometimes there's a quirk at an individual place. We have these blank spots on the map. It happens in some rural parts of the state. New Hampshire divvies things up by townships. They aren't just counties. So it leaves little holes that our team wants to be sure we know exactly what's going on. But that's not going to be relevant for the electoral math if it lands for Vice President Harris. Maine and its one congressional district would be, but again, the key number there is 50%. You have to get to 50% to win that. And in Alaska, but again, you look at the totality of this map, and it would be beyond shocking if Donald Trump does not get 270 plus electoral votes.
And where does it stand with the House, Rachel? Donald Trump, you heard in his speech say, we took back the Senate and we very likely took back the House, but the House is still not decided.
Not decided. And when I ran into Democrats with Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries, they said, welcome to election weeks, possibly months, because of just how long it could take for the vote to be ultimately counted in states like California. It may be a while. And so, we did have our eyes on very early Virginia, too. This, again, is a district that former President Donald Trump won. Then it flipped to President Biden. Then Republican Governor Glenn Youngkin won this district, a true bellwether. Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries said if they were able to win here, it'd be a good sign. They'd be on the path to clinching the majority. Well, guess what? The Republican incumbent, Jen Kagan, she was able to keep this seat here in this state as well. We talked a little bit about Matt Cartwright in Pennsylvania, 7 terms that he has served here in this state. His parts of his district, Donald Trump did win, and the Republican winning here as well. We've also had our eyes on Michigan as well. These North Carolina races were redistricting. They were we assumed that they would obviously go toward a Republican. Democratic incumbents didn't even run there. And let's take a look here in Michigan as well. This was another critical seat. This is the area around Lansing. You have the Republican doing well here as well. So right now, too early to call. Democrats hoping that ultimately they could clinch the majority, but it's still all being sorted out. Again, every 2 years, all 435 seats up for grabs. So a lot of counting to do.
Do me a favor and take me through some of these upstate New York communities right outside New York City that were in the midterms. They went red. And we see that Mondaire Jones was not successful at his challenge.
Yeah, this was interesting because you had 2 people who have served in Congress going up against each other in a district. Mondaire Jones moved into one district. He lost. He ran again. Mike Lawler ultimately victorious here. He was with former President Donald Trump when he was campaigning over on Long Island. So he was able to turn this one out. Let's take a look at New York 18. Pat Ryan was able to hold on to this. This was a closely watched race as well with Esposito. He was able to hold on to this race by a pretty large margin, 45,000 votes as well. Let's go to New York 19. This was really sort of about 94% of the vote, and this is really
it's
interesting
very
here.
close, right?
Yeah,
Wow.
this is and it was really a coin toss. Both sides having their eyes on this. Riley ahead right now, and New York 22. The Democrat doing well here as well, David.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back to these numbers, and as soon as we can call the biggest race tonight, the presidential race, we will project here on ABC if we can in these overnight hours. So don't go away, and we sure do appreciate you staying up with us. It's about 4:07 here in the East. Hey, listen, Good Morning America is coming up shortly. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. ABC News live coverage of the election night 2024 continues right after this.
Harris-Walz, Trump-Vance. Election night 2024 continues. Here again, David Muir.
Hello again, everyone. It's about 12 minutes past 4 in the morning here in the East. We know these are American elections. They last well into the night, at least the last several presidential elections. Let's go right back over to the board and Rick Klein. I just want to explain to our viewers who are staying up with us, who are getting up this morning, now getting ready for their workday, for those who get up super early to start their day. And I just want to bring people up to speed. Obviously, we're very aware that Donald Trump is most likely going to be here, the 47th president of the United States. We just don't want to project it officially until we absolutely know it's a mathematical impossibility. That's what the decision desk, that's their job. That's why they're so careful and steady with what they do. Let's take it, let's look at Wisconsin, for example. I guess what would get us there or closer is that Milwaukee vote that's outstanding, right? The other map that you have that shows us where there's still vote. How much is left?
Yeah, so we have about a quarter of the overall vote left in Milwaukee. You can see what this looks like. That big dot, that is Milwaukee, a bluer place because it's a 65-33 edge for Kamala Harris. And as that vote comes in, we'd anticipate, based on where it's from and the type of vote, that it will add to the margin that Harris has in that county, a county that she's winning by 108,000. We've seen some other rural vote trickle in. That number's gone up a little bit for Trump. That's why it's so difficult to beat down the margin. But our team plays this very carefully, following the numbers, nothing else. And look, we're sitting here at 266 electoral votes, and there's no reason to be cute about it. We heard President Trump, the former president, declare victory earlier. He is exceedingly likely to get a majority in the Electoral College. He needs 270 electoral votes. But until the math is actually there for us in an individual state, our decision desk wants to just be very comfortable with that decision based on that circumstance, based on the vote that's actually in. We're just not there quite yet in a couple of states.
Michigan's is it Wayne County in Michigan that we're
Yeah, it's Wayne. In Michigan, it's Wayne County, and we just don't have a good answer at this hour as to even. They had told us maybe something in the last hour, but we got only about half of the vote in, and that is a huge county. It's by far the biggest of the state. 400,000 something votes still outstanding in a place that Kamala Harris is winning by 300,000 and down by 220,000. That you combine that with other places where there's some vote out. That's a big dot there. Some more in Kalamazoo, some in Ann Arbor. And there's just enough uncertainty out there that we don't want to go beyond where the numbers lead us.
Yeah, completely understood. How about the Sun Belt states, Arizona, Nevada? Where are we there?
Yeah, we'll check in on Arizona and Nevada. Arizona, we said from the start that if Arizona is at all close, it's going to take a very long time to count. Right now, we only have about half the vote in, and it is going to be several days before we get a substantially larger amount of that vote. Right now, Donald Trump's lead is about 1.5 points. When we've looked inside Maricopa County, by far the biggest county in the state, we only have about half of that vote, and Kamala Harris has a narrow edge in that state. So you can imagine if the trends hold, that as more vote comes in, she might be drawing somewhat closer. And then in Nevada, people could mail in their votes as late as on Tuesday. If they're postmarked on Tuesday, they could arrive as late as Friday. So we don't even know the universe of votes that we're dealing with. We do know that Kamala Harris had barely holding on to Clark County, which is Las Vegas, is by far the most populous part of the county. This is a place that typically a Democrat would need to run up the numbers pretty substantially. That does not appear to have happened tonight. But again, 55,000 votes just from that one county in a margin of 57,000. And we still have some dark spots. We had some issues with reporting out of Nye County, not an enormous county, but right now there's only a couple hundred votes in that county coming in at all. And in Washoe County out in Reno, which is more of another classic kind of swing county, Donald Trump is up there, but even there, only about 3/4 of the vote. So again, we're not sitting here trying to explain something away or make something happen that would seem to be a mathematical impossibility. When you take all of this evidence together, we all know what it looks like, and it's very much the story we've been telling tonight. It just isn't there quite yet when it gets down to the math.
Yeah, which is just, it's our duty to follow
That's right.
the math, and that's why we have a decision desk that we don't interact with here. Go back to Pennsylvania, if you could, some of the rural counties. I'm curious, we've looked at Donald Trump meeting or exceeding the threshold. Can you look in some of those rural red counties and just see how Kamala Harris did compared to, say, Joe Biden 4 years ago, Hillary Clinton 4 years before that? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't even that rural. Luzerne County, which is Wilkes-Barre,
Wilkes-Barre, right? Yeah.
is a really interesting one to look at because Hillary Clinton hit a low water mark for Democrats back in 2016. It looked like Joe Biden was on the move a bit in getting some of those votes back, and we saw a real backsliding. In an area state, maybe Joe Biden did better than a typical Democrat because he's from nearby Scranton. But in any event, that's what happened. Looking at some of these big counties out in the western part of the state, Kamala Harris, getting only 35% of the votes.
Pretty close to Joe Biden.
Yeah, it is.
Above where Hillary Clinton was. Yeah,
that's right. There's no growth there. There's no area there where you see any kind of.
Which is interesting. And listen, this is just a couple of counties you showed us, but it gets a little to Lindsay's question earlier, because I was curious in some of the rural counties here, the red counties, if Kamala Harris, how she performed in comparison to Joe Biden 4 years ago, Hillary Clinton 8 years ago, and she's coming pretty close to where Joe Biden was, if not, matching him and outperforming Hillary Clinton in a few of these counties. So some of this might be Donald Trump beating his performances in the rural counties and just adding to his rural vote across America. Terry Moran, you wanted to weigh in on this?
Well, I think that the rural Democrats were a hope of some of the people I talked with out on the campaign trail. They felt that as I said, the rural Democrats had found each other. They were disheartened and demoralized after 2016, and almost afraid to identify themselves to their neighbors as Democrats. And it felt like they'd gotten their spirits up, and they were putting their lawn signs out, and people were shooting at them. That did happen sometimes, but they wouldn't give up, and they felt that they had something. Party chairman in some of these counties thought, you know what, they're gonna up their totals and make a difference. And I do think some of that happened, but they were just overwhelmed. Once again, Donald Trump in rural America found voters every single election cycle that he's run in, people who'd given up on the system, who'd stopped voting, and he kept bringing them out. And that's good news. Right? I mean, that's a good thing for democracy. And it's amazing that he does it.
And I do think the encouragement of participation in the early vote, which he didn't do 4 years ago, we might be watching something tonight, too, where they got the early vote out and they kept encouraging and then just added to the margins on Election Day in a way that they didn't do 4 years ago. And I wonder, in looking back for the Democrats, if they're going to, in counting so much on these urban centers that Donna was talking about, and it's saying she's really going to have to overperform in Philadelphia, for example, tonight, or she really has to be doing better than that in Madison, if they put themselves in a position knowing that the Republicans are really going to work on the early vote this time too, that their effort needed to be somehow the effort to reach these red states is a bigger issue that Terry has been talking about all night here. But I just think that maybe the Republicans were onto something with pushing for the early vote and then adding to it on Election Day. And it feels as though the Democrats were actually put on the defensive come Election Day, Rines.
Yeah. And that was something that we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks, which is in these two buckets of votes that we talk about a lot. We have the early vote bucket, and we've got the Election Day bucket. What happened to the Democrats is that they always beat us in the early vote, and we always win. In the recent times, the Republicans win on Election Day. So when the Democrats started in a place like Pennsylvania with 800,000 fewer votes in the box going into today, they had to beat us not only on election day today, but they had to beat us with 800,000 fewer votes. The same in Wisconsin and Michigan and all over the country, which is why I didn't think Joe Biden or Kamala Harris would win any of the 7 battleground states today. And I don't think she will, but obviously we've got to wait and see.
Well, once again, Barack Obama in 2008 had time to enlarge the electorate. That's one of the reasons why he was able to get over 1.2 million votes over John McCain. This was not an opportunity to expand the electorate. Look, Donald Trump, let's put everything on the table. Donald Trump expanded the rural electorate. I mean, when you grow the electorate, when you grow it, and there's no other forces to counter it, Democrats are not going into these rural areas and looking for votes, maybe suburban areas. But look, there's a lot to digest. I'm still trying to figure out where the path is in Michigan and Wisconsin. Of course, Clark County is another disappointment. Look, these are areas of the country I know very well. The last time, Jonathan Call and I were in Las Vegas a couple of months ago. I mean, that's an area where Democrats normally overwhelm on not just the early vote, but the day of. And look at the results.
The Latino vote.
I think it's significant. I think Clark County is the Latino vote, and Donald Trump being very successful on this election day, peeling back the Latino advantage that Democrats had, particularly in Clark County. And to have an even score, really, between the Democrat and the Republican in Clark County should be eye-opening for the Democratic Party.
I don't know if I'll ever close my mouth or gamble there again. That's just a lot.
You will. You will. I know you.
But they have that ground game too. I mean, the Latino vote, and the culinary workers. That's a huge, powerful union there, and it's majority Latino. They were going door to door to door. I think they said 900,000. And you know, the door to door is always interesting to me. It's like, how many did you actually talk to? How many answered the door? Because we've been out with them before, and you know, you knock on the door and they move on. But the argument they had, and even those Kamala Harris supporters, was, look, you know, I know the economy's not great, but it takes a while. That's really not a great argument to tell someone. It may take a while. And again, the rent prices there, the grocery prices there, it is huge. And you talk to Latino voters, they wanted to talk about issues. They didn't want to talk about, you know, what Donald Trump was saying. It was issues, issues, issues.
Lindsay?
If you take a look at Nevada in particular, and we have a board for this, there you go. So it's tied, 47 to 47.
Yeah.
But this is actually a 12-point improvement for Donald Trump from 2020. And in particular, again, he's winning even more with Latino men over 2020.
It's going to be a big storyline for the night, is the Latino
and,
vote.
Yeah. And the border, too. I mean, we talked about this a little bit before, but sitting down with a Latino voter who said he really likes Donald Trump's border policy, I said, you know, he's going to deport millions and millions of people coming into this country. And he said, oh, no, he's only going to deport the criminals. Like, he's not going to deport the other people? No, it'll just be the criminals. So whatever message he was sending out, received.
By the way, the person you're speaking of might be right.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
no,
That might be the
it's true.
political
It's a
versus
little
the
hard to
reality, and
deport a million
maybe that
people.
person's a little closer to what's really going to happen.
These voters have moved to Trump after the Harris campaign made their closing argument, and much of their argument echoed in many places that he was racist and fascist and a danger to democracy. And we're looking at 51% of the American people rejecting all of that. I mean, I think that's cause for reflection for Democrats and for a lot of other people. I don't know. If you talk to your neighbors who voted for Trump, if you have them, they just don't buy any of that. They just didn't buy into that at all.
Let me bring in Mark Updegrove, presidential historian. 51% didn't buy it, that's for sure. And the 46.9 that voted for Harris did buy that closing argument. And so, Mark, I guess we bring you in to help viewers at home understand, just how everyone's going to move forward here on this in a divided electorate. Some who thought, democracy was at stake, and others who have clearly decided to turn back to Donald Trump for myriad reasons. Economy we've talked about at length here, immigration we just talked about, and in Clark County in Nevada, in Las Vegas, Latino voters peeling away for Donald Trump in huge numbers, simply because of, and I don't say simply to talk it down, because these are very real issues, but I think that they were driven, as Lindsay showed in the exit polls, by economy, cost of housing, inflation, very real dynamics that American families have had to deal with for many years now.
David, I'm with John Carl, who said it several times. This is the most spectacular political comeback in the history of our country. There's nothing even remotely comparable. Richard Nixon came back from a defeat in 1960 when he ran against John F. Kennedy. He lost a gubernatorial bid in California 2 years later, and folks were writing Nixon's political obituary, but he came back to win the presidency 6 years later. He has nothing on Donald Trump. Donald Trump, we all know, 2 impeachments, January 6th, the loss of the election, and 34 felony counts, on and on and on. But I think his success is echoed by 2 successful presidential campaigns in modern presidential history. One is Ronald Reagan in 1980, who constantly asked voters, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago, and defeated Jimmy Carter resoundingly in 1980. And then 1992, when you had George H.W. Bush defeating the incumbent president, Bill Clinton, and his political advisor, James Carville, reminding everybody it's the economy, stupid. And I think Americans truly believe that Donald Trump has a better economic strategy to move them forward. That is the motivating issue, and Donald Trump capitalized on it very successfully, David. But we simply haven't seen anything like this in the history of our country.
And how do the American people move forward, for those who feel so strongly that the outcome either way was going to be dangerous for the country moving forward?
This is democracy. This is what you have when you have folks voting in a free and fair election. There's been no greater disparity between candidates than you've had between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, and you've seen almost a 50-50 split, nearly a 50-50 split between Americans. It shows how divided we are. That's no surprise. We've seen that. We know how divided we are. But this is democracy, and if you are an American, you have to accept the result of a free and fair election, and we have to figure out a way to come together in the wake of this very surprising, in many respects, decision by the American electorate, David.
Mark, what do you make of some of the exit polling and sort of the coalition, really at both sides, the way they turned out, who they voted for tonight? And I guess in particular, what we've been talking about is that Donald Trump, he definitely carved out, for example, again in Clark County, Latino support in some of these urban areas, some of the different battleground states. But one other thing that he did that is quite extraordinary is that in all of these red counties in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, North Carolina, Georgia, he upped the number in some of these smaller counties, but he did better than he did 4 years ago.
WHAS 11 Sports Team. The game is here on WHAS 11.
All right, Kentuckiana, a very good Wednesday morning to you. It is 4:30 here on your post-election day. That means we have a lot of big news to get to here this morning. But we're going to start with our weather. If you're waking up with us this morning, some rain across Kentuckiana here, Sam.
Yeah, that's right, Grace. We're actually waking up to some decent rainfall across much of our map. In fact, this rain coming down at a pretty good moderate to heavy clip across much of our area. Some good old steady rain showers to introduce our morning here in the wake of the election. So again, a lot of this rainfall is going to be making for some wet conditions on the roads. Some ponding of water could be possible. And here's actually a quick look at the metro. Notice a heavier band up on New Albany towards the Knobs right now, Sellersburg, and there's another pocket down towards towards Mount Washington this morning. So we're going to continue to watch the metro and up to the north right now. North Vernon, Versailles, Brownstown, on Madison, as well as Cotton, Indiana, all seeing the light rain early on this morning. And there's a heavy pocket off towards Brandenburg. Really nothing to be too worried about. So I just want to reiterate the roads will be pretty wet with standing water going on across much of the area. So take it easy with travel early this morning. We're going to be seeing clouds kind of take shape throughout the course of the afternoon. So even though the steady rainfall will be coming to an end by midday today, it will be kind of mostly cloudy to overcast for the afternoon with a few more additional showers in the forecast. But once again, another very mild morning. Temperatures making the way easily into the mid to upper 60s. And that bus stop forecast does bring in some more rain early this morning for the kids to get their school day started. 66 degrees in the metro, and when they do return from school later on today, reaching the low 70s with a couple of pockets of isolated showers. Now here's the one I'm forecasting in a few more minutes. Some lighter rainfall tonight with some weekend rain looking likely as well. And that weekend rainfall could be heavy. I'll be talking about that complete forecast coming up. A live look at the roads this morning, and I want to mention there's really looking quiet conditions in most spots across town. A perfect traffic tracker. We're going to continue to watch the drive times pretty closely as this rainfall could be bringing some delays.
All right, Sam, thank you. Election results continue to come in this morning with the presidential race still undecided. Supporters of former President Trump ended the night on a happier note as he secured battleground states North Carolina and Georgia overnight. ABC's Christiane Cordero is tracking it all and has the latest from Washington.
It was a late night for both presidential candidates, jolted with energy in West Palm Beach, where Donald Trump's watch party was filled with donors, family, and supporters into the early morning. Moments after securing battleground Pennsylvania, Trump declared victory. Though, as expected, he did so before the race was officially called.
We overcame obstacles that nobody thought possible, and it is now clear that we've achieved the most incredible political thing. Look what happened. Is this crazy? But it's a political victory that our country has never seen before. Nothing like this.
At Howard University in Washington, D.C., Harris's watch party started with music and dancing, but turned chilly when the crowd was dismissed with no appearance from the VP.
She will be back here tomorrow to address not only the HU family, not only to address her supporters, but to address the nation. So thank you. We believe in you.
Down the ballot in some states, enshrining the right to abortion access. It passed in Nevada, Arizona, and Missouri. A similar measure failed in Florida, which has one of the nation's strictest abortion bans. It needed a 60% majority to pass. Florida's has become the first abortion-related ballot initiative to fail since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade.
In the congressional races, Republicans have regained control of the Senate. Control of the House of Representatives is still up for grabs. Christiane Cordero, ABC News, Washington.
And right now, as you just heard there, Republicans are set to take control of the U.S. Senate. This comes after key races last night resulted in flipping Democratic-held seats and holding on to key GOP incumbents. Early last night, Republicans flipped one key seat in West Virginia with the election of Jim Justice, the state's governor, who is replacing retiring Joe Manchin. There are still a few races yet to be called, but the totals here currently sit at 51-42. It's the first time in 4 years the majority would not be held by Democrats. As for the U.S. House, Republicans currently lead Democrats there as well. Republicans hold 190 seats, Democrats 168. The Associated Press is still reporting 77 races yet to be called. Either party needs 218 seats to have a majority there in the House. In some local election news, the race for Indiana governor barely got started last night before it was over. Indiana was called for Republican Mike Braun shortly after the polls closed. Republican U.S. Senator Mike Braun will take over that seat after defeating Democrat Jennifer McCormick and Libertarian Donald Rainwater. Braun pulled in more than 54% of the vote compared to McCormick's about 41%. He joins big names like Mitch Daniels and Mike Pence to run the state. The win also keeps the governor's office in control of Republicans who've held it since 2005. During her campaign, McCormick pulled major support from many in southern Indiana, choosing Terry Gooden of the well-known Gooden law enforcement family as her running mate. It wasn't enough to swing the seat. WHAS 11's Travis Breeze and photojournalist Philip Merle have more.
Definitely not the result that the McCormick campaign wanted. Even though the Associated Press called this race at 7 p.m., they were holding out hope for 3 more hours until 10 o'clock. Eventually, McCormick took the stage and conceded, but still said that their party has a lot to be proud of.
We will go into tomorrow knowing we still have work to do, because you know who's depending upon that? Our kids, our families, our communities, and the great state of Indiana. It has been truly my honor to represent all of you on the campaign trail.
An emotional Jennifer McCormick taking the stage and thanking her supporters. Many hoped the former Republican turned Democrat and strong supporter of public education would do better. Still, she performed better than the last Democrat to run in 2020.
I think it sends a message that women are not happy, that it's such a close race, that I hope the Republicans don't take this as a message that they just got everything.
While the Democrats will try again in 4 years, they say the work will continue every day.
This is our fight. This is our fight, Hoosiers, and this is our time, and don't let up on the momentum. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. And Hoosiers, let's go.
In Indianapolis with Chief Photojournalist Philip Merle, Travis Breeze, WHAS 11 on your side.
And across the river here in Kentucky, a proposed amendment to the state constitution has passed. Amendment 1 will add language to the state constitution firmly prohibiting non-U.S. citizens from voting in Kentucky elections. Secretary of State Michael Adams has already testified this wasn't happening, but said he felt it was important to clarify the language to prevent it from ever happening. Now to another big Kentucky amendment that drove voters to the polls, Amendment 2, also known as the School Choice Amendment. Kentucky voters resoundingly said no. The ballot measure would have opened the door for the General Assembly to send public funds to private schools. 64% of Kentuckians voted to kill that measure. WHAS 11's Alexandra Goldberg reports.
Kentucky voters rejected Amendment 2.
I know that our message has resonated, our message that public funds belong to public schools.
Will Powers of the Kentucky Student Voice team says the amendment was never popular in Kentucky, and this vote proved it.
I have heard plenty of times that our public schools are not meeting the needs of our students. I have heard plenty of times that we need to do more to increase opportunity for every student. But you know what I have never heard? That the answer to that is a voucher program.
Christy Mudd, a teacher in Jefferson County, celebrating at a No on 2 watch party in New Loop.
It just really shows that we truly are supported. Our communities do support public schools, and they are advocates for public education.
Downtown at the Henry Clay Theater.
I just think what's most important is just giving the parents the right, let them choose what's best for their children. I think that's what's most important. Less government and, more on the parents.
Louisville's GOP conceded.
It's a tragedy for our kids, honestly. Not for our parents to be able to have a choice in the schools that they go to and to be able to get the different education components that they need.
Vice Chair of the Jefferson County GOP, Charlie Bell, says the fight will continue, but the messaging has to change.
I believe that there was a fear instilled that the public school system would be bankrupt.
For now, Kentucky's constitution will remain unchanged, solidifying public dollars for public schools only. In Louisville, Alexandra Goldberg, WHAS 11 on your side.
Amendment 2 was one of the largest drivers of local voters to the polls this year. In Metro Louisville, 67% of the vote was on the no side. Sam, coming over to you, rainy day.
Yeah, really rainy morning so far. We're actually going to be seeing some decent tallies. Up to about an inch of rain could be in the forecast throughout the course of the morning today. But a quick look at our radar zoomed in on Jefferson County. You get the overall look right now and gist of things. The heaviest pockets of rain are south and west of the city by Brandenburg to Tell City, Litchfield, and Caneyville. I'm going to be talking more in detail about when this rain will be ending throughout the course of the morning coming up.
All right, thanks, Sam. Tech issues plague polls in Metro Louisville on Election Day. The proposed solution to the backups and how a judge responded. And half of Kentucky's state Senate seats were up for grabs in yesterday's election. The breakdown and results of key races coming up after the break.
And the Mega Millions, $334 million, Powerball $75 million.
Back to your election news this morning. The election also touched half of Kentucky's state Senate seats. In districts around Louisville, several candidates ran unopposed. Those included Democrats Cassie Chambers Armstrong from District 19, Gerald Neal for District 33, and Keturah Herron from District 35. Democrat David Yates won another term with 60% of the vote against Republican candidate Calvin Leach. Yates currently serves as the Senate's minority whip. And Democrat Morgan McGarvey defeated Republican Mike Craven. It'll be his second term in the U.S. House representing Kentucky. If you voted in Louisville yesterday, you may have had to stand in a long, maybe frustrating line. We can tell you that a computer meltdown put things on hold until about 10 a.m. at some polling locations, and a move to keep the polls open later was eventually denied. WHAS 11's Ian Hardwitt explains.
Voters lined up out the door at polls across Jefferson County. Anitra Beatty waited 2.5 hours at the Stephen Foster Traditional Academy polling spot on 41st Street in West Louisville.
A lot of people are becoming disgruntled. A few people are leaving, and we don't need that.
She voted in the afternoon after the Jefferson County Clerk's office had resolved their issue with check-in tablets crashing. In a statement, the Kentucky Secretary of State's office said, quote, "There was no software issue in Jefferson County, and the problem appears to be that insufficient time was allowed for the e-poll books to download the names of voters who had already cast their ballots." So we asked a spokesperson for the clerk's office.
Could the machines have been fired up earlier in the day so they could have had a head start on those 113,000?
I don't think that that's something we could have done.
Republican Metro Councilman Anthony Piagentini said the 2-hour poll extension the Kentucky Democratic Party requested was too much.
By the afternoon, that had been remedied, and at the end of the day, I think people had the opportunity to come back and get their voice heard through the ballot box.
The leader of Black Lives Matter Louisville, Chanel Helms, said even more people should vote early next time to avoid Election Day issues.
People are very emotional, and I really wish we could have got the extension, but I'm kind of glad that people were really turning out and very passionate about the race.
Ian Hardwitt, WHAS 11, on your side.
Secretary of State Michael Adams says he plans to work with local election officials and lawmakers to make sure something like this doesn't happen again. You can stay up to date on the latest local and national election news. There will be a lot of it today by downloading the WHAS 11 app on your smartphone. You can get that wherever you get your apps. All right, Sam, we do want to come over to you, though. Thankfully, all this rain we're seeing this morning held off for today instead of Election Day. We know that could have definitely impacted turnout numbers.
My goodness, Grace, yes, well said, exactly. This rainfall kind of let up until we got into about late last night, right around midnight is when that rain began. And we're expecting to see a decent amount of rainfall as we get throughout the course of the morning. So this morning will be one of those mornings for sure. So make sure you do have the umbrella packed with you as you step out the door to get your workday started. A quick look at our current Max HD radar, our first rain of the month of November this year. And again, we are seeing some decent rainfall moving through from west to east. It's kind of slicing us right now in a northeast to southwest coordinate. You can see in downtown Louisville some decent rain coming down. St. Matthews, DeBuchel, Fern Creek, Prospect, also seeing some pretty decent bands of rain this morning. As we make our way up to the north, Seymour to Scottsburg, Carrollton included as well in some of this decent rainfall. Lawrence County actually out of the woods right now from the rain. You can see the bands of rain are mainly affecting much of the Ohio River itself from Fort Knox to Shepherdsville and Valley Station. Bardstown pretty soon, you're going to be seeing that first push of rainfall to get your morning started. So it will be a bit of a rainy morning, but I guarantee you by the afternoon, we're going to be seeing the steady rainfall kind of turn more isolated in nature as we get you into much of early to mid-afternoon today. 68 degrees at Ali International, so we can kind of thank the amount of clouds and the rainfall this morning for keeping us relatively mild. In fact, to the north, on the back edge of the system of rain in the front, we're noticing low 60s in Bedford and Jasper. But out ahead of the front, temperatures still in the upper 60s and lower 70s. Frankfort to Springfield this morning at 70 degrees respectively. So futurecasts continue to show the band of rain this morning still persisting until about 9 a.m. I do think once Good Morning America comes to a close and we get into the 10 a.m. hour and beyond, we're going to be seeing the rainfall a little bit more spotty. Some pockets of brief heavy showers are in the forecast. Notice into early to middle afternoon possible to the south in Litchfield and Elizabethtown. Otherwise, we're going to be guided on by quieting conditions into this evening. But once again, around midnight, a few more showers could be reorganizing and look to be lingering into much of our Thursday morning. So overall, we're going to be looking at the steady rainfall coming to a close by late morning today, and it's going to be coming down at a pretty good clip. Right now, we're still suggested to see about an inch, if not up to 2 inches of rain, especially south of Louisville. Now, here's the tropics. We're still watching the tropics, believe it or not. Hurricane Rafael, a Category 1 hurricane right now. The track of Rafael bringing it further westbound, possibly towards the western Gulf of Mexico as a Category 2 hurricane by Friday. So there's your 7-day forecast. Still looking in the clear Friday, but picking up some chances for rainfall as we get into late Saturday and then again on Sunday. When it comes to the roads right now and travel, I just want to reiterate that it's looking a little slow in some areas. There's actually a look at the wet roads. Some ponding of water will be possible, so please take it easy with that morning rush hour commute. There's your traffic tracker a little closer early this morning.
Thank you, Sam. Hey, Veterans Day coming up on Monday, so the Louisville Zoo has got a deal for all of you military members. We'll tell you how to score discounted admission after the break. Plus, casting your ballot for the first time is a big moment. For one recently naturalized citizen, he's not taking his first time voting for granted. His story after the break. Voting for the very first time is a big moment, but it can be something people take for granted. For one recently naturalized citizen from the Middle East, it's a moment 5 years in the making. WHAS 11's Jose Alonso has more.
That's the only thing you want to vote for?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
With the completed ballot and thumbs up, Iraq native Joseph Al-Shemari submitted his first votes on Election Day. Very good. That's it.
Votes counted. Yep.
He's one of the many naturalized citizens in Jefferson County making his voice heard for the first time. So I here start a new life. America give me a lot of life. The Baghdad native traveled far before reaching Louisville. His connection to an American organization in Iraq helped him engage in the citizenship process. I traveled from Baghdad to Jordan, from Jordan to Chicago, from Chicago to Kentucky. I was not have any relative or family here, just one friend. He was my sponsor. It took him 5 years to earn legal status and shake this judge's hand. And now, Al-Shemari has economic dreams he wishes to pursue. This year, to establish the new company, I will be hopes do some what I did in Iraq, like to supply the American army or the companies. I just heard from the Jefferson Community College and the friends, they have the program for the minority and they have the small business. So I'm happy, I'm excited. Al-Shemari is currently a student at Jefferson Community and Technical College. He was recently featured in a Facebook post encouraging others to vote. Thank you so much for my professor. So she taught me in the American government class and how I got to register online because I told you before, this is the first time for me. Voters exercising their constitutional right. For Al-Shemari, it was a long journey for a quick and easy voting process. In Jefferson County, Jose Alonso, WHAS 11 on your side.
Al-Shemari is set to graduate with an associate's in liberal arts soon. After that, he hopes to pursue his bachelor's degree and one day open a small business. New this morning, the Louisville Zoo is offering free admission to all active and retired military personnel and their families in honor of Veterans Day. All you have to do is present proof of service at the zoo's admissions windows and you are good to go. Along with the free admission, military personnel can get 10% off at the gift shop and 50% off of concessions. The zoo will be open from 10 a.m. until 4 p.m. Yeah, as we head into, Sam, this Veterans Day weekend, we're looking forward to all of that. Fun times at the zoo.
Yeah, we sure are. Hopefully the rain can let up here as we head into the weekend. I know we're looking at some rainfall Saturday night into Sunday. Here's a live look right now. Speaking of rainfall at our current radar, it's going to be a rainy rush hour commute for a lot of us. In fact, much of us across Kentuckiana will be seeing about an inch of the rain. We're going to be continuing to watch the rain move through our area during the course of Good Morning Kentuckiana. But here's a live look right now at the metro. Notice the heaviest pockets near Jefferson County are out towards Lanesville, Georgetown, towards the Knobs. Up to the north, some additional rainfall, and the heaviest pocket of rain, though, is just southwest of Louisville, Hardinsburg to Irvington. I'm going to be providing further updates on our forecast for the rest of the morning and, frankly, the complete 7-day forecast with the Weather Impact Alert team coming up in a few more minutes.
All right, Sam, thank you. Coming up at 5, a Nelson County judge makes a key ruling in the Crystal Rogers case. Its impact on the trials of the main suspects, including Brooks Houck and the Lawson family.
I want to thank you. I will not let you down. America's future will be bigger, better, bolder, richer, safer, and stronger than it has ever been before.
Presidential candidate Donald Trump declares victory. This morning on GMK, we tally up the electoral votes and the big winners in our local races.